Every jutsu has a weakness. This infamous line came from Itachi Uchiha, and though it was in reference to abilities in general, it can also be applied to the composition of certain entities. One example being the Tail Beast's vulnerability to Genjutsu, or Suigetsu being especially susceptible to lightning-based techniques. This is all possible due to a core mechanic of the universe itself being taken advantage of, and that remains true in Boruto. You see, these new shinju entities are indeed immensely powerful, and that's largely due to the fact that they were created using the body and power of the Ten Tails. Though due to that same connection, they also gained a great weakness, and in this case that weakness is nature itself. To understand why this is the case, we need to go back to the events of Naruto, specifically the events of the 4th Great Ninja War. This is around the same time the Ten Tails was brought back, using the chakra of all 9 Biju along with the Gedo statue, which is the husk of the Ten Tails itself. This part is very important because this is when we learned that the Ten Tails itself is just a mass of natural energy. In fact, Kurama states that it's the same as which circulates the world. It's that which you feel in the soil, the water, and air. We even got a visual representation of the immense power after Naruto tried to gauge it by entering Sage Mode. All we could see was just how immeasurable it truly is. Now what this means is that similar to how the Biju themselves are just masses of enormous power that's capable of taking a physical form, the same applies to the Ten Tails as well, which means at its core the Ten Tails is just nature energy itself in physical form. The reason why this is important is because Naruto was able to damage Obito due to him being the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails. He then went on to explain that toad attacks are Genjutsu, which means they use nature energy. So since the Ten Tails itself was nature energy, maybe you can counter nature energy with nature energy. This was especially unique since the Ten Tails was immune to non-senjutsu based techniques, which means up until that point you could only use taijutsu to affect it. This then brings us back to the shinju beings, who aren't necessarily just fragments of the Ten Tails since they also possess Code's chakra and claw marks. Even so, that would be enough to make them susceptible to nature-based techniques specifically. What this could also mean is that these entities, similar to the Ten Tails, might be immune to non-nature-based techniques, which would explain why the bug Shinju was able to completely shrug off Boruto's Chidori stream. That then also means that only individuals capable of manipulating nature energy or performing sage attacks would be effective against them in battle. Now notice that I did say manipulate nature energy or use sage attacks, and that's because they're not necessarily the same thing, in the sense that while you need the ability to manipulate nature energy in order to perform sage techniques, you don't need to be a sage for you to be able to manipulate nature energy. A good example of this would be Jugo's natural affinity to absorb and use natural energy, to the point where he could use Sage Transformation, which is different from Sage Mode. In fact, as explained by Fukasaku, it's all about the balance between mental, physical, and nature energy. If you don't manipulate those three together carefully, you can't produce Sage Jutsu Chakra. And just to clarify one more thing, mental energy and physical energy is what's used to create chakra itself. So in a sense, Naruto is just adding nature energy to the production of chakra, which then creates a new type of chakra. So similar to how Baron mode is created by molding Naruto's chakra with Kurama's chakra, it's the same thing for Sage mode, just with nature energy. And that's also what sets a Sage mode user apart from someone who could just manipulate nature energy. They can just use it to pretty much augment every aspect of their being to a greater degree due to their heightened control. Now this leads us back to Boruto, who hasn't displayed the ability to use Sage mode, but might have gained the ability to manipulate nature energy. Now just to be clear, I came to this conclusion based on his application of his new technique called Rasengan Uzihiko. This, once again, according to Boruto himself, allows him to incorporate the planet's chakra, its rotation. Now, as we all know, the planet's chakra is nature energy itself, the same energy you feel in the air around you, as confirmed by Kurama. So if Boruto is able to use the planet's chakra, it may also mean that he's somewhat able to manipulate nature energy. This also lines up with the fact that his teacher for almost 2 years has been Kashin Koji, the same guy who has the ability to use Sage mode, thus being able to manipulate nature energy himself. Now there's a lot we don't know about Kashin Koji and his Sage mode specifically, since he was artificially created by a model, which could mean that his Sage mode is also artificial, thus the difference in color and design. Even so, Kashin Koji might be able to still teach Boruto how to use nature-based attacks, since the training doesn't require anything Kashin Koji wouldn't be able to access. If he's able to use Sage mode, it means he understands how to mold nature energy energy with his own chakra, which is pretty much all you need to understand in order to use Sage Mode itself. Well, along with the need to be absolutely still, which is really just a part of the molding process as well. So it might also be the case that Boruto does know how to enter Sage Mode and likely used it in the battle versus code. Now of course you guys are probably saying that it clearly didn't happen since Boruto didn't have the pigmentation around his eyes, nor did he have the toad pupil, which is true. Even so, the pigmentation thing is kinda weird, in that we know that it signifies that you are in Sage Mode, and it's also an indication of the natural energy you have gathered into your body. Yet, at the same time, Fukasaku explained that a true perfect sage doesn't display any toad features, which in turn meant that Jiraiya was an imperfect sage. Now, what's confusing about it is that Naruto is considered a perfect toad sage, even though he still has some pigmentation and frog eyes, which are toad features. Now, of course, you guys could just say I'm nitpicking here and they didn't mean literally all toad features will be gone, but we do have some evidence that supports that viewpoint. This brings us back to Hagoromo's backstory, where it showed that he traveled to the land of the toads and mastered Sage Mode. Yet for some reason he never displayed any toad features, not even the eyes themselves. Now I could guess and say that, Naruto never truly mastered Sage Mode, which is why he kept those features and Hagoromo did it, which might be the case. But there is another viewpoint, which is that Hagoromo being 50% Otsutsuki somehow allowed him to fuse that power with his own without any adverse effects. Now this would make perfect sense since your Suzukis have consumed chakra fruits over several millennia at least. And chakra fruits are pretty much a planet's chakra or energy and genetic information. In fact, we even saw Momoshiki consume a chakra fruit from another planet but underwent no physical changes. This means that the Otsuzukis in general have likely developed a natural immunity to the drawbacks of using natural energy. This of course brings us back to Boruto, who is now considered 100% Otsutsuki, thus enjoying the same immunities as well, which simply means that Boruto could have been in Sage Mode and we just didn't notice. Now this somewhat debunks or contradicts my initial claim about the bug Shinju being immune to Boruto's attacks, since he wouldn't be if Boruto had Sage Mode. This also explains why the Shinju showed some visible scratches despite not being too bothered by the attack itself, which could be more so about the strength of the attack in comparison to its durability. This is also important to point out because them being weak to nature-based attacks doesn't mean that any nature-based attack would work against them. The attack itself and the strength of the person using the attack is also very important. With that being said, Boruto isn't the only one that is somewhat of a counter to these beings, and that is if Boruto has Sage Mode, which is kind of funny since out of everyone on this list, Boruto is the only one who isn't confirmed to have Sage Mode, because we have Kashin Koji who has Sage Mode, we have Naruto who has Sage Mode, and we also have Mitsuki. Now Mitsuki is quite an interesting case since we still have no idea where his power came from. What we do know is that it is indeed Sage Mode, so Mitsuki would be just as effective depending on his power level of course. Though I would say that having multiple Sage Mode users will be valuable either way, and that's mostly due to the certain hacks provided by Sage power, such as giving the user infinite stamina. And what I'm referring to is when Fukasaku explained that unlike Ninjutsu chakra, where you progressively tire because you're using up your internal energy, with Sage Jutsu chakra, you continuously take in nature energy from the outside. So not only do you not get tired, you also recover and heal quicker too. So in a sense, while in Sage Mode the user has infinite stamina. This is because even though you're combining your physical and mental energy with nature energy to produce Senjutsu chakra, Senjutsu chakra itself doesn't require your mental or physical energy to maintain it, it just needs it to achieve it. So while in Sage Mode, all you need to do is add more nature energy to maintain the form. What this means is that unlike Kuruma's Baryon mode, which is limited by the fact that Kuruma's chakra is limited, Sage Mode has an endless supply of nature energy to refuel its power. Now I will say that it's kinda weird since Kuruma came from the Ten Tails itself, and the Ten Tails is said to be just a mass of natural energy, so Kuruma himself should also be a mass of natural energy, right? So I'm not sure if that was ever confirmed in the series itself, but it's always been in the back of my mind, like Kuruma came from the Ten Tails, so he should have the same type of chakra, right? It's literally the chakra of the Nine Tails that is being used to revive the Ten Tails even in the war, so that was kinda weird to me, but I guess it also does support the fact that Kuruma is able to gather natural energy for Naruto, right? Kurama is natural energy, so it wasn't confirmed verbally, but I guess they did it through actions, I suppose, but it makes perfect sense. With that being said, again, let me know your thoughts on this, analysis or theory, whatever you want to call it. Do you think that, the Sage Mode users will be the ultimate, like, God Slayers in Boruto? Like, they'll be the ones to go up against these beings? And I wonder, because one of them are going after Sarada. She doesn't have Sage techniques, but maybe she'll learn them. I saw one post from Anime Balls Deep earlier today saying that Sarada's teacher is Orochimaru. So, hey, Orochimaru knows a lot about Sage Jutsu, techniques and all that jazz. And as I pointed out before, you don't need to learn Sage Mode to manipulate nature energy. So maybe Sarada is able to infuse natural energy into her Shidori or Fire Style or whatever to make it, effective against these beings. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, with that being said, let me know your thoughts on the video itself. Drop a like if you like it and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.